suggest you fill out, so you do this online questionnaire or profiling, and then don't worry about it. The results will come to me, and then we can discuss it there. But it'll just bring a whole lot of relevance to your meeting. So, anyways, I did this thing. It's quite a lengthy thing. It's 200 questions, but you get through it quickly. And he walks into the meeting and he's rubbing his hands together. He says, "I've been dying to meet you." He says, "I know all about you." I said, "Oh, this sounds a bit ominous." Anyway, so I sit down, and he proceeds to unravel me like a book. I've never seen anything like it. He's sitting there and he's telling me about myself. I'm nodding. Yes, it's me, this is what I do. He tells me how I argue with my wife. So not what we argue about, but how I argue. It's more important. And I'm saying, "You've been talking to my wife, haven't you?" I've never met her in my life. So now the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up and I'm saying, "Who's this guy here?" So you really, this profiling is just the most incredible thing. And it's used in a variety of industries, primarily by people who are recruiting. So anybody that you want to recruit, you put them through this profiling and you know with a degree of certainty which is beyond your belief whether they're going to fit with your culture and they're going to fit into that particular role that you've got earmarked for them. Yeah, so that was my introduction to Mark. So he's like a guru for me. Anyway, so as a result of that, because it's much more than that profiling, as a result of that, we got Mark to come in and do a session with our staff. So it was a whole day session broken up into bite-sized chunks. And the staff will tell you that he has changed their life. So that to me is like manna from heaven. So they've got purpose, they've got meaning, their jobs have more meaning, everything is about it. He's got his work cut out because he's trying to work on me as well. I need to change my life too. But that's a work in progress. There's just so many mistakes. And so he's doing another session with our staff tomorrow. But Mark's interest is actually to fix the world, to fix people and put them in the right, so that people actually are happy doing what they're doing, and knowing what they're doing, and management is happy, and everybody's making money, and it's just a very happy place. But I'm not going to steal his thunder because I'm probably giving you a really, really bad example of what he does.
Oh, I'm fascinated. Please.
His official title is he's a personnel enhancement specialist. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So he's a personnel enhancement specialist. That's what he does. He's not a management speaker. He doesn't do all this stuff. He's very particular and he's very passionate about what he does. Don't get cornered in a corner because you'll never leave. But he's hoping to make a difference in Mauritius and with Mauritian companies. So I hope this is a good start for him today to meet a whole lot of people that have businesses or work in businesses and maybe identify that this might be something that they could use in their business. But without further ado, Mark Shreffler, welcome to the South African Chamber of Commerce.
We have a little bit of a problem because we only have an hour and a half and we got to get back to work. So I've got to cram about 5 hours of information into an hour and a half. So I've come up with a solution for the problem. Because there's a lot of stuff that I won't be able to get into the detail I would like to. So I prepared a flyer for you guys. I'm going to hand this out right here up front. Hand out those. All the way to the back. Over here, all the way to the back. You see, it's a very simple flyer. There's parts of this flyer. You're going to turn this in at the end. You put your name on this at the top and put your email address on it at the top. As I go through this material, you're going to go, gee, I wish you'd spend another couple of hours on that subject. Make a note of that. And when you turn that into me, then I will get it in the next couple of days. I will send you all the information you want about that particular subject. So I'm going to introduce you to some things today, and you're going to go, okay, I want to know more. Good, here, read that. Yes, sir. You need more paper.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
My spread technique usually is more thorough. There you go. Okay, we're going to jump into this aspect, keys to productivity and profitability. Does this look like anybody here? It's a fascinating subject, but it all, like all things, has very simple solutions. We're going to go over solutions today. Fundamentals that are not being generally applied. And we will begin with this particular concept, a word. What is a word? It's simply a capsule of communication. It captures a concept and it goes across the space when you're written or spoken, what have you. Words. We're all familiar with words. But there's some things about words that we haven't ever heard before. A word means not what the speaker thinks it means. A word means what the listener thinks it means. Do you follow this? Yep. This is an important understanding. If I asked you to marry me, I would assume you know what I'm asking of you. You follow? And when you say yes, you assume that I define the word marriage the same way. In the United States, there's a 54% divorce rate, which suggests that they defined marriage differently. Does that make sense to you all? Have you ever asked somebody to do something and they said yes they would and then there was no compliance? Does that ever happen? Well, here's an interesting observation. How many of you have ever found yourself reading a book and you get to the bottom of a page and don't remember what you read on that page? Does that happen? Right. The reason for that, of course, is that you earlier on that page passed a word you didn't understand. There are no other reasons. The test of it is, when you go back where you were doing well, right at the end of that, you'll find a word that you thought you understood, but you actually didn't. And when you pass a word you don't understand, your attention freezes right there. You still have some attention left, so you stumble forward. And by the end of the page, this is why people read before they go to bed. I can't get to sleep without a good book. And the more technical the book, the faster you go to sleep. You go past any classroom on this continent, in the world. Believe me, I've seen it all. Education is my business for these many years. You watch a teacher in front of the class giving a lecture to young kids who don't have a vocabulary that even approaches what this teacher is using in front of them. And sure enough, kids are out there going, and they get the eraser up the side of the head. Hey, what? Wake up! What are you sleeping in class? You're causing that, teach. You're the one that's creating that problem. You're using words they don't understand. Okay. I discovered this in Australia with my oldest son. We just moved there, and he was home from his new school. The guy said, "What did you learn today, Evan?" And he said, "Nothing, Dad." And I laughed and said, "No, really, what did you learn at school?" "Not a damn thing, Pop. Not a damn thing." Pretty free-spoken kid. And I thought, well, this is an interesting state of affairs. I mean, I don't send my kids to school to be babysat. They aren't babies. They are intelligent people who I want to have trained. I said, "Bring me your homework." And he brought me his homework. And there were words in these homework questions that I didn't know the definition. Long story short, that's when our homeschooling began. We took them out of school and we homeschooled them all the way up. couldn't find a school system that understood this one single thing. If you pass words you don't understand, you're out. You ever been talking to somebody and suddenly they go, their attention is just moving on. Does that happen? Yeah. People don't know to ask, what's the definition of that word? They don't know to ask that. This started, by the way, in 1865, which is another story. If you're interested about that, make a note. Misunderstood words. Please tell me more, and I'll send you information that will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. You know, the only reason a person gives up on a subject he was once interested in is that his past words he didn't understand. That's it. It's the whole key to truancy. We did a huge project in England that proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt. We went out and recovered kids who had left school. They didn't want to go back. And they went back and we started finding the words that they had passed in their school. And we found the first words, boom, wow, they were interested again. And back to school they went. Fascinating. Does this make sense to you all? There's another interesting fact. We're going to get off this subject, but there's so much more to say, so write it down. If you're interested in this education and words, write it on your paper. I'll send you some stuff that will blow your mind. Intelligence is the ability to tell the difference between differences, identities, similarities. You follow? High intelligence suggests you have a differentiation ability. You can tell the difference between them. Stupid people, it's all the same. It's just gray. Everything is gray. You follow? The interesting thing about it is, psychologists have told us, and mind you, I have my full training in psychology. I was in fact in a graduate class called Advanced Abnormal Psychology. And I had a realization. Mind you, I take every psychology class in this university. And I felt like I was getting stupider, stupider, and stupider. I didn't know about dictionaries in those days. It didn't make any difference. I didn't do that. I had a question of the professor. There were only 6 people in the class, so I wasn't shy about asking it. I said, Paul, I have a question. He said, oh, yes, sir. I said, "Dick, smoked a pipe that didn't go up at the end, it went straight out with a screen on the end. He smoked something like that. And the way he smoked it was very interesting. It was like it was a pacifier or something. This chimney. And he was thick. They had to paint a stripe on him to see if he was walking or rolling. And he would walk around with his feet played out like this. This is a psychologist. He's, in fact, the dean of the college. Well, excuse me, I have a question. Yes, Mark. And whenever he pulled the pipe out, his tongue would do this. Weird. Yes, Mark. It was like a lizard or something. And I said, you know, I must have been missing on the day when we discussed what is normal behavior. You follow? We're here trying to get people normal. I'm still trying to figure out what does that mean. It seems to me, now we're in a class called Advanced Abnormal. Seems to me we should figure out first what normal is. And then we can determine what's something to compare it against. You cannot evaluate something unless you have something to evaluate it against. Do you understand? Advanced abnormal, I'm sitting here going, how do we know it's abnormal? Maybe it's not abnormal for him. Do you follow? People have called me pretty eccentric in my life. I haven't been particularly normal, according to whose standard. So Paul, please tell me, what is the word normal in psychology, in terms of behavior? What does it mean? And he continued with his pipe, continued with his talk, as though I had not asked a question. Of course, this was the 60s. Of course, I don't remember the 60s very well. Because, of course, I lived through the association with my friend. So I thought maybe I didn't actually ask that question. Maybe it didn't actually come across. Because maybe I just, so this time I stood up and I said, excuse me, Paul, I have a question. Thinking that maybe I didn't ask this question. And he stopped and he said, yes, Mark. I said, what's the definition of normal as far as behavior is concerned? Please tell me. I really do need to know. I'm a little desperate at this point. And he went, that's a good question. And he continued with his lecture. He clearly did not know. I haven't met a psychologist since then who did. It's the only question I ask a psychologist. What is the definition of the word normal? You follow? Do you get the importance of words? Does this make sense to you all? Pull up your hand if that makes sense. Okay, so as we go forward, there's two agreements I want to have with you because we have a lot of data to cover in a very short period of time. So, first order of business, the first agreement I want to establish with you is the information I'm giving you is not true because I'm telling you that it's true. It is true that I'm an expert in this material. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please hold your applause. It's not true because I tell you it's true. If it's not true according to you and your own observation, then it's not true. Does that make sense to you? You are responsible for your own education. So I'm going to pass it on. I hope you get it and use it. And if you have a question, please raise your hand. It's a nice size group. We can take up questions as they come. So that's the first agreement. Is that agreeable to everybody? All right. Yes. All right. Second agreement. Because I'm going to go pretty quickly now. I need to know we're on the same page as I move through. So I'm going to ask questions from time to time to make sure we're still together. These questions are going to be like, do you understand this? Does that make sense to you? Is this something you can use? Questions of that sort. And when I ask those questions, what I require from you is an indication of life. There's a life form sitting on your chair. So that can be expressed with a nodding head or a shaking head, a noise from your armpit if you like, whatever. But it needs to be a sign of life. If I don't get the sign, I will assume that I have failed to communicate. And I will go over that information again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. Oh, okay, great. Excellent. Communication that is not two-way is not communication, in fact. And here is a very important point of the day. All problems are problems of communication. There is not a problem that is not a problem of communication. It doesn't matter what field you're dealing with, astrophysics, quantum physics, doing your laundry, training your dog, whatever it is, it's all communication. A problem is defined to type. There's a force and a counterforce. These things jam up, they lock, they hang up. It's a communication, counter-communication when they lock. We'll get into a little bit more of that later. But the subject here is dealing with productivity and profitability. Believe me, when you resolve the communication issues in your company, they just vanish. These problems just vanish because they are all communication problems. Now your task is to figure out which is the communication problem you need to solve first, second, and third. I'm going to show you some stuff that will argue with that information. But we need to be together on the words. We all understand this, yes?
Yeah.
Hands up, yes? Excellent. Let's also cover this. Now the word is serious. This is a very important word. You've got to know this word. The word serious means when interest is important because of penalty. When interest is is important because of penalty. I better pay attention to this or something bad's going to happen. I better say this or I'll get in trouble. I better not say this or I'll get in trouble. Do you follow? This is a serious mentality. Now, I'm not going to get into it today. Make a note and they'll send you information that this is a fascinating thing to observe. We get what we put our attention on. We get what we put our attention on. This is quantum physics, my friends. This is not a matter of some woo-woo. This is real stuff. If you're concerned about people making mistakes, guess what? They're making mistakes. Police, they want to get rid of crime. We're trying to get rid of crime. We want to stamp out crime. We want to rid the place of crime. Get rid, out of crime. Well, what do we have? Crime. Crime all over the place. You put attention on crime, you get crime. Does that make sense to you? If you want to get rid of crime, you put your attention on honesty. Does that make sense? If you want children who are competent, you put attention on training them. Do you follow? As soon as you start correcting people by pointing out what they're doing wrong, you just cut your throat. This is not the way you handle people. This is the way you handle a machine. You find a dentist. I've worked with thousands of dentists over the years. I mean, terrible managers. Terrible managers. Because what they do all day is they sit in an operatory looking for cavities, looking for problems that they have to fix. And they're in there like this, all day. And then they come out of their operatory and they look at their stuff. They start picking at their stuff. Have you ever seen somebody in your office, for example, who's always pointing out what's wrong? That person is creating the wrongnesses. Do you follow? It isn't that the wrongnesses didn't exist. It's only that they persist because attention is on them. You will find that people want to do well. They want to succeed. I don't care who you are on this planet. You are basically good and you are seeking to survive, and all you want is what's right and beautiful and good. Honestly, this isn't some airy-fairy comment. This is the most easily observable thing around. And the only way we blunt the way of that is by pointing out what's wrong all the time. You didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. Does this make sense to you all? So you create a very serious environment. How many of you saw the movie Jaws? Yes? Remember in the beginning scenes, when they first were introduced to the shark? The girl is out there swimming, and the boy, he's so drunk he can't hit the beach with both hands. And she's out there swimming, and he's trying to get his shoes off. And she's out there swimming, and suddenly you hear, yeah. And you think, that doesn't sound good. Yeah. And then he's trying to get his shoe off on the beach. And then she's swimming in. Yeah. And then the view is different of her legs. Oh, gee. I better get to the beach, young lady. You know, you're hollering out, you're just wishing her someplace else because something bad is going to happen. Wouldn't it be great if life had a soundtrack? Wouldn't it be great if before your last wife or your last husband, before you met that person, when you first met them, you heard, don't bite her, not drink! Well, what happens after a few of those shark attacks is you get very serious. You start to think that's what life is all about, getting eaten by sharks. So you start to look for them. And guess what you find? Everywhere you look, you find a shark. This is called the boss. Does this make sense to you all? Yeah. Now, when Sirius comes in the door, any chance of success is out the window. Your source of waste, lack of profitability, lack of productivity is in the seriousness measured in your operation. Unserious people don't waste things. Unserious people get along. They're not all the time. Say amen.
Amen.
Give me an amen.
Amen.
All right. Does this make sense to you all?
I'm struggling with that.
Sorry?
I'm struggling with that. I have a slightly different take on it, if you don't mind me.
Struggling with the
Yeah.
serious
Yeah.
aspect?
Yeah.
Okay, and well, you should. Later on, we're going to cover some more material that will bring this into
Okay.
a sharper focus.
All right.
But I want to make sure you understand that this concept can occur in this room at any time. Because we're going to be discovering material that you might not have known before, and as a result, got yourself into a little difficulty. Okay? And so from time to time you hear something and you get a little serious about it. Gee, I do that to my kid all the time. You follow? If you're reminded of a mistake you've made, do you get happy about it? No, you don't get happy about it. You get, and then you tend to think with more things that are wrong, more things that are wrong, more things that are wrong, until you get a big snowball wrong. Say amen.
Amen.
Okay. Life is motion. There's a fundamental for you. Everything's moving. Whatever you're looking at in this universe, it's moving. Whether it's a circle of galaxies or a child running through your living room, it's all moving. Your success in any area of living it boils down to two factors, and only two factors. When you master these two factors, you're winning. And when you don't, your life is running you. First of these is the willingness to experience motion. If life is motion, you've got to be willing to experience it. If you're not willing to experience that motion, you're trying to get away from it. No, don't show me that. Don't show me, oh, I'm afraid of snakes. And suddenly there's snakes everywhere. If you don't like snails, you're afraid of snails. Mauritius is the wrong place. They're all over the damn place. Oh, it's a snail! It's a, oh, that's a snail! Willingness to experience motion. The first criteria of succeeding. If you're going to fix a motor, you better be willing to experience the motor's motion. If you're not willing to experience its motion, forget motors. Do you follow this, everybody?
Yep.
This is one of the purposes of training, by the way. Raise the person's willingness to experience the motion of his or her job. Here is a fascinating data. If you want to know more about this, write it down. I'll send you some more material. And that is this word production. We're talking about production after all. There's only two reasons why production fails or goes down. Two reasons. You fix these two reasons, your production takes off. Well, the first of these is bad hiring. How many have ever hired badly? Who's had the experience? It's a train wreck, isn't it? It's just a train wreck. You hired the close relative to Attila the Hun. And now you can't get rid of him. He's like a leper fish stuck to your neck. Who's had the experience? Yes? One bad hire ruins your whole year. So bad hiring, that'll destroy productivity. So the solution, of course, is correct hiring. It's very simple to hire correctly, by the way. There's only, again, 2 steps. If you want to know about hiring, write it on your paper. I'll send you the 2 steps. If you apply those 2 steps, you'll never hire badly again. If you don't apply those 2 steps, I guarantee you, you're in for a bloodbath. This is not rocket science. It's very simple, very easy to apply. If you want hiring, write it on your paper. But the second factor of productivity, and the reason productivity fails, is you're not training people for their jobs. Training people for their jobs. I mean, the guy's a salesman. How many of you in your companies wear more than one hat, have more than one job? Show me your hand. The fact is, there isn't anybody who doesn't. For example, the receptionist. She has the receptionist hat, but she also has a staff member hat. That includes security measures and how you operate machinery and stuff. There's also a teammate hat. This is the way teammates operate together. It's a specific hat. Specific job descriptions and results and so forth. So anybody can aspire 6 different hats. Not all at the same time, but certainly through the course of the day. How many of you operate machinery in the office like Xerox machines, yes? So you have a Xerox machine operator hat. If you let somebody operate the Xerox machine who hasn't been hatted for the Xerox machine, it buggers up an item that everybody else uses and now stops productivity in the office because you haven't trained people on that hat. You cannot believe the amount of waste that occurs. Your profits disappear when you're not training people specifically on their jobs. This happens particularly with CEOs. Somebody who starts a company, in the beginning is wearing all of the hats. All of them. I wear the sales hat, but in order to do sales, this has to happen first, second, third, fourth, then I sell the hat. Do you follow? So I hire somebody to be my salesperson. But he's already a salesperson, so I don't have to train him. But wait a second. There's all these other hats that he has to wear to be effective in your company selling. You follow? You don't turn those over. You just hire a salesman because I don't have to worry about training because he's already a salesman. Have you ever done that and found out that the guy couldn't sell? It might not have been his sales hat per se that he was failing on. It's like somebody tells you my marriage is on the rocks. Okay, here's another important rule of thumb that will destroy your productivity. Allowing generalities to float through a business. What is a generality? It's an unspecific. Everybody knows you can't do blah, blah. And you say, who is everybody? And then he comes up with one particular person who said that. Politicians do this all the time. The American people want, wait a second, I don't want that. I'm an American. In fact, I know a lot of Americans, and I don't know anybody who wants that, what that politician said. Generalities are things that people hide behind to keep their mischief unknown. Never allow a generality. Well, we can't do that because everybody in Mauritius is, you ever heard that? Generality. Oh, Mauritians are generally, wait a second, who are you talking about specifically? Does this make sense to you all?
Yeah.
All right, so you've got to recognize that hiring correctly and training people on their specific jobs are two critical factors. If you do them, your profitability soars, your productivity goes up. If you don't know anything else today, wow. But part of the training includes, of course, the words that you're training these people on. This gets into this second factor, the 2 factors of success. Your willingness to experience motion and your ability to control motion. These are the 2 factors, because life is moving. If you're willing to experience the motion of a car and able to control the motion of a car, you own the car. Does that make sense to you? If you're a salesperson, you're willing to experience the prospect, you're willing to experience the whole sales process, you're willing to experience the motion of no. How many salespeople have you ever known who resisted the client saying the word no? Salespeople hate the word no. They'll do anything to keep people from saying no. If it looks like the customer's going to go, the potential, the prospect is going to go, as soon as he goes, the salesperson whips out his bag of sand, get the and he starts to do something else to deflect the person's attention away from the big no. You've got to be willing to experience the motion of no. Are you with me? You've got to be willing to experience people not liking you. Does that make sense to you? If you're not willing to experience people not liking you, you're already not living your own life. You're trying to live what you think other people want. But they're as confused as you are in that. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes?
Yeah.
We're still together?
Yeah.
You write down anything and get more data. I got all kinds of information. We're just moving right along. I'm going to ask you all to do something. I want you to do it as quickly as you can and hold up your hand when you've accomplished it. Are we agreeable to this? Okay, everybody, this is a nose. I want everybody to touch 3 noses. Start. Very good. Thank you very much. It was a simple task. How many of you ever noticed that when you make a decision, seriousness leaves? Just goes. You ever notice that? You make it, even if it's the wrong decision. Any decision is better than no decision. Because as soon as you make a decision, okay, that will do it. It might be in the wrong direction, but you can always change your mind. Make another decision. Whew. So you made a decision. Let's see, which finger am I going to use? Whose nose am I going to touch? They moved away as you approached, so you changed your mind. Move in another direction. Production doesn't occur without a decision. But we did it. We actually touched those noses. Now, an organization has to expand or contract. This is not an optional thing. If you're in business, you know you must expand. There's no staying the same. Sorry, that option is not available. It's not one of the things you can tick off. Not available. You either expand or you contract. This is the nature of this universe. There is nothing that stays the same. You follow? Let's get a seat here. Yes, do we have a hand? You betcha. All right, so now we have a plot of productivity. Now we know you can touch this many noses in this period of time. But to expand, we need to target and quota something that is a little bit higher. So this time I'm going to say start, and I want you to touch 3 noses twice as fast as you did a moment ago. Ready? Start! Hands up when you're done. Excellent. Excellent. All right, you did it. This is called an out statistic. Very well done. And you notice that when you did that, you were less serious. You follow? It's like, okay. Because life is moving, and you're moving, and you are controlling it. And hey, isn't this great? So obviously this works. How many of you realize that you felt better this time than you did this time? Oh. Yeah. All right, so once again, did you feel? Did you feel what just happened? As soon as I put this quota up on the board, everybody went, oh no. That's too fair. You're being unreasonable. I can't do that. You poor thing. The fact is, 2 points of hiring very quickly. Number 1, you establish the person's production history. What is the production history? It's the history of the things the person has completed, finished. Not the jobs he's held. I don't care what jobs you held. I don't care what your degrees in school are. One of the best hires I ever made was a 22-year-old kid for a middle management position in a major company. He's 22 years old, this kid. The only reason I interviewed him was the person who sent him to me, who had lots of credibility for me. He said, you got to interview this kid. I said, for what position? He says, whatever. Just interview this kid. I said, okay, I'm done. Sat the kid down, his name was Gareth Jekyll. He was bright. I must say he was bright. But boy, can you buy a lot of stuff. In America, we have an expression. Well, I'm sure you probably have it here too. I'll demonstrate it. This is American Sign Language, by the way. Everybody show me 2 fingers, your right hand. And lay it across the wrist. Just get the left hand doing this. That's American sign for bullshit. you have that expression here? Bullshit. There's a lot of this out there. So if you see this, you know what I'm talking about. How do you know it's this? Because it doesn't work when you actually apply it. If it doesn't work when you apply it, then why are you wasting your time with it? Only apply what works. Ignore everything else. If it doesn't produce improved productivity, you know, production is the basis of morale. You don't have to worry about the culture. Get people productive. They'll create their own culture. And it's a culture of productivity and aliveness and enthusiasm and fun. Are you with me? Productive people are fun people to be around. Unproductive people are telling you why you shouldn't be so unserious. You're not taking this seriously. You're right. Who hired you, by the way? So, you see this thing, the seriousness kicked in. So the first thing you do is you realize this is not a failure on the part of the employee. This is an inability on the part of the manager to recognize that the most important role of a manager is to train his crew. You must train your staff continuously, continuously, continuously. Training is the source of much mana, my friends. Would you two come up and assist me with this? I would ask Richard, but I would much rather. Now, I'm going to show these guys how to do it. I'm going to train them in touching two noses as quickly as I need them done. Don't ever put discipline in on people who are not trained. Do you know what the source of riots is? The source of riots is injustice. It is not the fact that people don't have food. It is not the fact that people don't have housing. It's the fact that those people have food and those people are denied food. Do you understand? Those people are treated with a different standard than those people. You do that, you are an idiot as a manager. You must have a system in place that is equal for all. It's based on your productivity. You follow? If you get your production done by noon, you can take the rest of the day off because it's running by production. It's not running by touchy-feely. So I'm going to train you. Are you ready? Yes. You look ready. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to touch you on the nose. Okay?
Okay.
All right? I'm going to touch you. You got two of my noses right there. Now you're going to touch me here. And you here. Now you're going to touch each other. Now when I say start, you take your finger off of their noses, touch your own nose, and put your hand up. Right? Let's try it in slow motion. Ready? Start. No, that's good. See, yours is good. You have the right idea, but okay, here we go. Once again. Ready? Start. We got the right idea with the other hand. Okay, you ready to go? This is for real. It's for real. As fast as you can. Ready, set, start. Boom, boom. This is your quota. Now you can be willing to experience this motion enabled to control. So I want you to find the two other noses that you need. Go ahead and do that right now. Go ahead and find your nose. Okay, do this stuff. Okay, here we go. Hands up when you finished it. Guys, I got glue. I got off the chair. All right, here we go. You got your noses ready? Hands up when you're done. Ready, set, start! Yeah! Excellent! This is what happened. You produced that much. You follow? Now, how many of you agree this time it was more fun than that time? How many of you agree that this was more production than that? How many of you agree that there was less motion going on here than there was down here when you were going? You were running around untrained. That running around untrained creates a thing called a backlog. Do you know what the primary source of loss in your organization is? Accumulated backlog. I promise you, that's it. All you got to do is get a good definition of what a backlog amounts to. And that could be a simple thing like the day you registered your company and started business, you didn't put in certain fundamental processes. And because you didn't put in those processes, they still haven't been put in because now you're so busy, you don't have the time to put them in. Are you with me? Why are you so busy? Because you've got so much undelivered backlog to handle, your attention is completely dispersed. You're busier than a three-legged cat trying to bury his stool on an ice pile. Did you all get that graphic? And most of the things you're handling are things that, wait a minute, why am I handling this? Why am I handling it? Well, you never trained somebody else on how to do it. Yeah, but I don't have time to do that. You think you're going to have time tomorrow? Well, you've got more backlog still. I didn't say it was going to be easy. I said it's going to be simple. It's not rocket science. But you need to put the system in. Because right now it's a state of cope all the time. So you've got to put a little organizing. A little organizing. And then you have cope and organize. Pretty soon it's all organized. And you're running your company from here in California if you want to. Say amen.
Amen.
All right, now I'm going to give you, because sometimes you get serious about things. You start thinking, oh, how am I ever going to apply this stuff? How am I going to ever put this in? Start to get serious. I'm going to give you some first aid. This is for seriousness. This is a guaranteed de-seriousizer. Because you must be unserious at all times. You've got to have a spirit of play about you. Because it ain't fun if you don't have a spirit of play. If you're always looking for what's wrong. Here is, are you ready for this first aid? Would you like to learn this first aid? Yes. All right. Show me your right hand. Show me your left hand. Put them together. And do this. Ho! 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 Harder! Ho! 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 Line in the hole! Ho! 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 Now, if you're in a recruitment interview and the guy, I want you to do this, just do this. And if he can't do that, don't hire him. I'm not kidding. Don't hire him. That dude is nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. Just lie down and get it. I don't care. I'm not inheriting you. I'm not taking you home to meet my family. You're not even getting close to this company. These are the people I love. I'm not going to share them with any people who can't do this. Does this make sense to you all? That'll keep you unserious. How many of you would like this productivity? Right. Hire correctly and train people on their specific hats. How you train them is another subject. You want to know how to train? Put it on your piece of paper. I'll send you some unbelievable material on that. Again, not rocket science. The problem you have is finding the time to do it now that you haven't done it for so long. Because the train has already left the platform. Now you're trying to fix its undercarriage while you're running alongside the train. This is why the backlog is absorbing all of your attention. You cannot believe how much attention you're wasting every day. My best friend of 35 years, I met when he called me over to Stockholm to help him turn his company around, and it just crashed. I arrived, I met him and his wife. Wonderful people. I stayed with them in their home. And walked into the house, and it's beautifully laid out. And here by the fireplace is a golf bag. It's huge. It's like one of those demonstration bags you find in pro shops. It's got 100 golf clubs in it. And I walked over and I looked at it, and they're all dusted and clean, just like he just played with it. This isn't just a prop. This is like, wow. I said, Martin, you play golf? He says, I love golf. Fantastic. Fantastic. I didn't play myself at that time. Picked the club out and said, so how long have you played? I said, no, I played with this guy. I was one of the first golfers in Sweden, and so forth. I said, when's the last time you played? He says, it's been 5 years. Excuse me? 5 years. It's been, it was almost sad telling me. Mark, I don't have time for golf. I am so busy. When do I fit the golf in? Wow. I began to get the complexion of the seriousness to which this game had fallen. So I met his execs the next day, and they each took me around their area of the company and showed me this and pointed out all the reasons why they were doing badly. Obviously, none of them the correct reason. Here's a fascinating data for you. When you set out to solve a problem and the problem doesn't solve, you're solving the wrong problem. Did you get that? I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell that person what I just said. If you set out to solve a problem and the problem doesn't solve, you're solving the wrong problem. Please do that very quickly. That's the short version. I went into Sony some years ago. They had lost the market share. They went from 94% to 78% over a 7-year period. Their sales manager went to a sales workshop that I was delivering. And at the end of this workshop, he came to me and said, we want you to assist us. I said, well, who is we? They said, well, my company is in Silicon Valley. But you've covered material here that I think is important to us. We've been trying to solve a big sales dilemma. I had no idea how big. This is a $4 billion a year division of Sony. So I was up in Silicon Valley, and I debriefed with the senior management of this particular division. And by the end of that 2.5-hour debrief, I had the problem. You see, they've been trying to solve the wrong problem for 7 years. They kept telling me it was a sales problem. So I knew going in the room, it's not a sales problem. I don't know what it is, but they've been throwing a lot of money to fix their sales area. So I knew it's not the sales area. These are not stupid people. They're just untrained people as far as debugging production areas. Debugging something is very simple. If you want to know more about debug, put it on your piece of paper. If you can't debug problems, you are crippled. Because, when you set out to solve a problem, the problem doesn't solve, you're solving the wrong problem. So he was solving the wrong problem for 7 years. And in a 2.5-hour meeting, I discovered, that's an interesting problem. I said, yes, I think I can assist you. You wouldn't believe hair follicles coming out. So, what do you need? What do we need to do? I said, I want to see all your marketing vice presidents for 1 full day. Tomorrow, here. Okay, we can do that. What then? I said, there's no then. Give me the marketing vice presidents for a day. We'll do what I'm going to do with them, and then we're going to see what happens. If that doesn't fix it, it might take a little follow-up, but I think this is going to be an easy problem to solve. Of course, nobody believed me, but the next day, all those marketing vice presidents were in the room. And we fixed the problem. It was amazing, because it wasn't a sales problem. Go figure. It wasn't a sales problem. Who would have thought? They were looking in the wrong basket all these years, spending millions and millions of dollars. All these guys were being transferred to other areas of Sony because of their failure to recover the sales. That's the way they don't fire people at Sony, they just transfer them to the Adirondacks. We identified the problem. If you want to know what the problem was, write it down on your piece of paper, and I'll send you full data. But you can't believe how simple it was. It was so simple, it had these marketing guys, very, very stiff shirts. You know, they walk in with their laptops. They sit down, they're opening their laptops. I started the meeting with a simple question. I said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a short, one-day thing. But as we begin, I would like to find out what is the definition of marketing that you use here at Sony. started opening their laptops. They dropped their pens on the floor and They used to do things that I did in school to get away from the teacher's gaze. They'd reach down below the table to get their pen, and they'd be stretching for it and waiting until somebody was picked. As their vice presidents, they should know what the hell the definition of marketing is. And they all picked up their pens, and then something else happened, and then they would be off. And I said, we can't go forward, ladies and gentlemen, until somebody tells me what definition of the word marketing do you use here at Sony? How can this be in a division that produces $4 billion a year and going down? Well, I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll let you off the hook. I'm going to just read a definition for marketing here out of my dictionary. And there's several definitions here, so I just want you to tell me which definition you're using. You tell me. I think that's fair enough. We're just in a multiple choice question. And I read the first definition, and some of them were going, that's just like what we're doing. And the third definition, hit everybody, yeah. That's how we define marketing. Great. So we'll move forward to that. And it went on. But the fascinating thing is, it's never difficult to turn a corporation around. And the reason it's not difficult is because you just go in and look where everybody hasn't been looking. And you go, oh, what about that? What is that? Why is there an elephant in your reception area? And he says, well, that's my partner's elephant. Okay, let me repeat my question. What is the elephant doing in the reception area? We know I never asked him. Well, why don't we ask him, partner? But while we're asking him, let's get the elephant out of the reception area, shall we? Yeah, no problem. You just can't believe how obvious these things are. And they're just out in the open. But nobody was looking at those because they were sure the problem is over here. Do you follow? We used to fix marriages. So many of them, they were like popcorn coming out of a short pan. And you just fix them like this. Fix them like this. You sit the couple down and say, okay, so very quickly here. Sir, how do you define the word marriage? I beg your pardon? Well, how do you define the word marriage? Well, marriage is basically, you connect up with somebody you don't like and give her a house. All right. Ma'am, how do you define marriage? Well, a marriage is where the woman, just give me a minute. Of course this marriage is failing. Neither one of them have any idea what they're doing. Do you follow? They are in a relationship they haven't ever defined. Well, let me ask you another question, sir. What do you think is the definition of a father? A father? Well, that's simple. He's got kids. Well, that's pretty simple. You probably got kids you don't even know you got. It all comes down to the definitions. And they're all very shamefaced about you. I never looked that word up. You know what? You're in one of those. So you probably should get yourself informed. Get yourself a little trained about what is a marriage. Do you know in India, it's a 1% divorce rate. In the United States, 45% divorce rate. In India, it's arranged marriage. Oh, it's arranged. Oh. I'll tell you, the best marriages I've ever seen were those arranged marriages. They were fantastic. These people are totally in love. And how do they get in love? Because they work things out together. Because we're married. And that means forever. Do you follow? In the West, I love you. I love you. And they're prancing down the road. And one day they go, oh, I fell out of love. You can fall in love. You can fall out of love. What a fickle world this is in the United States. Are you with me? Not so fickle in a culture that's 6,000 years old. And it's been doing things like that for 6,000 years. They figured it out. There's things we can learn from it. I digress. Are we all still together?
Yeah.
Are you guys enjoying yourselves?
Yes.
How many of you are getting something out of this?
Yeah.
Oh, the best is yet to come. The difference between this level of productivity and this level of productivity is training, period. If you're not training your staff every day, you're a fool. You are hemorrhaging your resources. All the people you have, honestly, the American Army taught me this. You can take an idiot and train him thoroughly on a particular thing, and he looks like a genius. Train him in sonar, how to operate machinery underwater. The guy's brilliant. He can identify anything that swims on his sonar equipment. You go try and play bridge with him. Bridge? Are we going to build a bridge? Excuse me. I'm sorry. I thought you were somebody else. No, you don't play bridge with this guy. You don't play poker with this guy. You don't play blackjack with this guy. He doesn't know how to deal. Yeah, I do this and then. But sonar, you put him in the sonar room. It's genius. You can make an idiot look like a genius if you train him. You follow? But you can take a genius and not train him, and he looks like a fool. Does that make sense to you? If you are not training your people, you are missing the most important bet there is. But it's got to be correct training, and it's got to be on a specific line. Yes, ma'am?
And who is training us?
Pardon me?
And who is training?
Who is training you?
Yes, because if I train people,
Yeah.
I also need to be trained.
Yes.
So who is training?
I offer my service. Listen, I've trained almost 1 million people in these many years. I'm actually 29, but I'm very experienced. Truth is, I've trained from Halliburton and British Petroleum to 6,000 or 7,000 dental practices, chiropractic offices. All exactly the same way, with exactly the same fundamentals. It doesn't make any difference. I drop this pen, it falls on the floor. If you're in Sony, you drop the pen, it falls on the floor. If you're in a dental practice, it falls on the floor. It's the same fundamentals that build something. If you don't know what the fundamentals are, you're not building, you're going sideways. You're just stressed out handling things that you shouldn't be handling. You get your most important people are the ones who can finish something. Number one, you hire good people. What's a good person? A person who can finish things. They have a production history, a history of things they have created in exchange for something of value. That's all you're interested in a job interview. I want to know what you have created that you are proud of. Well, this is when I came back to old Gareth Jekyll. I sat this 22-year-old kid down, thinking, middle man. I had to say I liked him immediately. And I said, well, Gareth, tell me, what have you created that you're proud of? He said, and he just brightened up at me and he says, well, I built a house by myself. I said, excuse me? Yeah, it was a 2-bedroom, finished house with a finished basement. I built it by myself. And I said, really? And then he thought, well, I have to tell you, the first 3 houses I built with my dad. He showed me how. Just so I understand. I mean, I owe it all to my dad. He showed me how to do it. And of course, I had a plumber and I had an electrician because I'm not licensed for those things. So it wasn't totally by myself. But everything else is by me. I did it. Squeeze me? 22-year-old kids accomplish that? I said, can you verify this? And he said, well, you know, as a matter of fact, I have a picture. And he pulled out his wallet and he had a picture. He says, this is my plumber, and this is me, and we're in front of the house. This is the house. I said, who can I contact to verify this information? Oh, well, here's my plumber's phone number. Here's my electrician's phone number. I'd give you my dad's phone number, but you know, he's prejudiced. You know, he was very proud of me. I couldn't believe it. This is too good to be true. And so I called his plumber. Said, listen, I have a young man here, Gareth Jekyll. And he's immediately, you can feel him smiling at the other one. He says, yeah, holy smokes. Powerhouse, eh? He says. I said, well, he tells me that he built the house by himself. Oh, hell yeah. And did you see his stamp collection? I said, well, I didn't know anything about a stamp. Oh, man, you got to look at his stamp collection. Holy smokes. Unbelievable. I did finally see that stamp collection. He had drawers that were this deep in a room, that long, and they were full-on pull-out drawers filled with the most beautiful stamps. Several $100,000 worth of stamps for which he traded. Never paid a dime for any of it. But he made this beautiful oak, slide, effortless. He made all of this. 22 years old. That was in addition to the house and everything else that he accomplished. This guy's a diamond. Gareth Jekyll. 4 years later, he bought that refrigeration company that we hired him into. Of course we hired him into it. What the hell? I don't care if I didn't even have a job. I don't care if I don't have space for the guy. We'll have him build a room on the back. You follow? You make room for people like that. I don't know what we're hiring him for, but we're hiring the guy. He gets things done. That's the definition of a good hire. So here are the 2 rules of hiring very quickly. Check the production history. Finished things. What has he finished? And 2, verify those things with your employers. Verify. If you do those 2 things, you never, again, make a huge error in hiring. Because the 2 points of hiring, you hire correctly, that's handled. Now you train them on their jobs. If you take a genius and you don't train them, you're the idiot. Because you're wasting this unbelievable potential. People are good. They are so capable. But you have to harness their ability. Say amen, everybody.
Amen.
Okay. Train, baby. Now motion. It's important to understand that life is motion. Everything is moving. But now here's a word you've probably heard a lot, but haven't heard much about. That's emotion. Emotion. What is emotion? Emotion is the resonant field that resonates particular behavior connected to each emotion. It's all that emotion is. No big deal, but you haven't studied it much because in all of my years studying psychology, never came across the subject. And yet, it's the most important subject there is, period. Why? Because people are the most important thing. Things are only as important as they serve people. Does that make sense to you? This is why I'm a personnel enhancement specialist and not interested in anything else. Because people are valuable. But if they are treated like they have no value, which is to say they aren't paid attention to, they aren't trained, they aren't assisted to accomplish their potential, we're wasting our greatest asset. Does this make sense to you all? Yes or no?
Yes.
This is a hugely important thing to understand. And they all express themselves emotionally. This is the emotion scale. I have literally delivered conferences that went for a week on this subject. Its applications to marketing, to sales, to management, to every aspect of an organization are unbelievable. Because emotion is the common thread to the human condition. We all have it in common. Do you follow? They're all the same for all of us. Never mind the color of the skin, your religious beliefs, your sexual orientation. It doesn't make any difference. If you're pissed off, you're pissed off. You follow? You could be a surgeon who discovers her scalpels are dull in New York City, and she's pissed off. Same characteristics as an Aborigine in the outback of Australia whose boomerang won't come back. This is very interesting. Very interesting. People at the top of the scale survive. People at the bottom of the scale do not survive. People at the top of the scale are easy to get along with. People at the bottom of the scale are trying to suck these people down the scale. People don't get along at different ends of the scale. Why? Very interesting why. It's easy to think of, because we're not going to go into any detail of this. I wrote a book on this subject. Write down, I want the book, on your piece of paper. I'll send you the book. No fee. I'll just send you the damn book. I want you to read this book. It will change your life. You read the book, Richard. Listen to what Richard has to say about the book.
What's the book called?
Yeah, he had to buy it.
What's the book called?
Sorry?
What is the book called?
It's called The Emotion Road.
The Emotion Road.
The Emotion Road, yeah. It's available on Amazon, but it's a crap copy. I don't know what we have some kind of a thing we're going to sort out this week, because I'm not literate on the internet stuff. Computers, really. I get very hostile around computers. I want you to just keep in mind, this is a simple thing to understand. There's a make-break point. Antagonism. These people are very tolerant of motion. These people are very intolerant of motion. And it's a gradient scale of tolerance. Are you with me? We have less tolerance, less tolerance, less tolerance, no tolerance. Do you follow? And as the emotion condenses, its behavior characteristics change very precisely, very distinctly to the next lower emotion. There's nothing optional about it. This is not something I want you to believe, and don't give a damn if you do or not. It's very observational. Look for yourself. Have you ever observed, for example, when you're giving your idea to somebody who's pissed off, the person is not listening? All problems are problems of communication. All problems are problems of communication. Let me show you something. Just below, this isn't the whole scale. There are emotions between these things. If you want, by the way, a copy of the scale, say I would like a copy of the emotion scale on your piece of paper. I'll send it to you. I really want you to have this. You look at this. As you come down this scale, in between conservatism and boredom, there is an emotion called mild interest. Mild interest. Mild interest is the first point on the emotion scale going up when you have interest as a factor. You follow? Interest is a fundamental condition of communication. If it's absent, there's no communication. So anybody who is below mild interest on this emotion scale, sorry, no communicating going up. All problems are problems of communication, and the source of them very often is just people who are low on the emotion scale. How do they get low on the emotion scale? Well, there's a number of ways. All of them very easily based. Easily repeated. This is conservatism. This is the point of the emotionally conservative people like to keep things the way they are. What do you want? What are you having? We're not going to make any decisions that haven't already been made. You follow? You don't want an executive in conservatism. Because if it ain't in policy, he doesn't know what to do. Well, what does the manual state? Let's do it that way. Conservative. They don't want to change. Just keep it the way it is. So then the person starts to erode, because if you don't go up, you're going to go down. Are you with me? This is the way the universe is. It's all motion. You're going in, you're going out, you're going up, you're going down, you're expanding, you're contracting. Well, on the scale, you're expanding or you're contracting on this emotion scale. On any given subject, you could have a different emotion. Are you with me? With your kids, you're enthusiastic as hell, and then you find out the mailing didn't go out yesterday, and you get pissed off. Are you with me? You're all over this emotion scale in the course of 24 hours. Does that make sense to you all? Yeah. This is a fascinating thing. Because nobody, he's a very pissed off guy. Yeah, sometimes. Depends on what you're talking about. You ever talk about rugby with him? He's not pissed off about rugby. Say amen, everybody. You got this?
Amen.
All right, now, pain. Very important emotion. Pain is the perception of imminent loss. I'm about to lose something. Pain is the emotion you feel when you're driving into an intersection and you hear behind you the squeal of tires. And you go, oh. You know, you brace everything. Oh. You know, all of your orifices shut down, your heart rate doubles. Oh. Bracing for impact. It's the perception of imminent loss. Pain. If you're not willing to embrace pain and experience pain, you are never going to accomplish anything. The reason that everybody gives you all the work is because you have a thing with pain. Pain lets me know I'm not dead yet. But you want to go out and run a marathon. Here's a guy, I'm going to go out and run a marathon. I've never done it before. I'll tell you what, I see those athletes out there, you know, okay, I weigh 260 pounds. You got to paint a stripe on me to see if I'm walking or rolling. But I'm going to go. So I buy the leggings and I buy the water bottle and I got the whole thing. And I get out, I start to run just around my yard. And before I have completed a full circuit of the yard, I'm going, shit. This is hard. I think I'll take up golf. Let me tell you something. Anybody you have ever met who is an accomplished person understands pain. And they understand the need to move through it. Do you know the inspiration for learning is pain? This is why rich kids are incompetent. Because they can buy everything off. They have everybody else. They have their maids. They have their assistants handling things. I had a secretary, Lorelei, who was my pain merchant. Anything that was painful for me, I just give to Lorelei. She was really good with that stuff. She was just tough as a bull. She could get things done like crazy, so I didn't have to do it anymore. So all my most painful areas, I turned over to Lorelei. She is a very competent person. All competent people have a willingness to experience the emotion of pain. People who don't want to experience pain stay away from it, and they remain here on the scale. These people are not surviving. You hire somebody who's here on the scale, you just hired a liability. Most of the resources in your organization, my friends, and trust me, I want to talk to you about this, because if you don't understand this is true, you are missing a major problem. Most of your resources in your organization are tied up in the attention sucked into backlogs, unfinished work. Do you know how important the backlog is? You know, how many of you heard of the Vedic hymns? The Veda. The Hindu scriptures. Yeah. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Veda. Okay, this is an interesting thing. But in the third Veda, the third Vedic hymn, we are introduced to a term which is karma. You've all heard this term, karma? The word karma means, literally in Sanskrit, it means finish. That's what the term means. Finish. Start what you finish. And if you don't finish it now, you will finish it sometime before you get off the wheel of life and death. Because that's what's holding you to it. What sticks you to your company is the incomplete things. This is so fundamental an understanding. You must finish what you start. How many have ever gone home exhausted at the end of the day? The reason you went home exhausted at the end of the day, one or two reasons. Number one, you've been this far away in a computer screen all day. Or two, you have incomplete cycles, things you started but you didn't finish in the office. You wouldn't believe what happens when you start finishing things. You start to get your dad. Okay. Wow, I've been working on that for 17 years. My kid just graduated. Yeehaw! That's been a backlog of 21 years. Trust me, it's rejuvenating. We have a client in Kenya. Walked into his office, as far as I could get in before I ran into the paperwork. Stacked up on the floor. He didn't have any leg space under his desk because it was all papers, stuffed. This was the most crapped up place I've ever seen in my life. And I walked in and he's wanting some assistance with his business. He hasn't seen his business in 10 years. He can't see it through all this paperwork. Do you follow? I didn't take the job. When I saw this pile, I thought it'll take us 2 years to get through this pile of stuff. The fact is, he was inviolable. Of course he was inviolable, because all his attention was stuck in this stuff. He's talking about, well, how do I generate revenue? You don't. Because revenue only flows on unconfused communication lines. They have to be organized communication lines. And where you have backlogs, you are jamming your revenue flows. Are you with me? You want to make income? Clean up this mess. Finish everything in these piles. Start. I'll be back in 2 years. But you'll be a rich man by then. Once you start finishing this stuff, you'll see, wow, I don't want to ever start something again that I don't finish. You remember, the essence of executive skill is being able to finish things quickly. That's what sets the real executive apart from an also-ran. I'll give it to Tom. Who'll get it done? I always had my go-to people. You follow for special projects and stuff, give that one to Tom. That's almost a mantra for me. Give it to Tom. Because Tom will get it. He'd walk into his office, his desk was spotless. His inbox had this much in it. His outbox was always full. You know, he never let something linger. Does this make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Finish it. That's the motto here. Finish it. If you're going to start it, know, okay, this is going to take this much time. And this is why it's an interesting introduction. Remember, all problems are problems with communication. Have you ever been sitting at your desk and you're working away and somebody comes up to you and says, "Are you busy?" Does that happen to you? You go, "Well, I was." I was very much in communication with what I was doing, and now I'm somehow being forced to be in communication with you, you lazy son of a bitch. That's an American expression, never mind. But no, say yes, what is it? Well, we have this problem. Oh, well, it's not my problem, is it? It's this junior's problem, who's not solving the problem. So where does it go? It comes up to the guy who can get things done. You follow this? This is the wrong thing to do. When you have an executive who gets things done, you keep people away from